I'm resentful in any type of way for where the WNBA is right now. My job was to leave the game better than I came into it. You think Cheryl?
You see, for what felt like an eternity, fans of Caitlin Clark were screaming into the void, watching a generational talent face a bizarre level of bitterness from within the very league she was elevating. Every sold-out arena and record-shattering broadcast seemed to amplify the jealousy. Then, onto the national stage of ESPN's First Take, stepped a voice that could not be ignored. Candace Parker, a titan of the sport, a two-time MVP and champion, finally gave voice to the common-sense truth that so many saw. She didn't just speak, she validated every fan's frustration. Her calm, logical dismantling of the resentment narrative was more powerful than any loud retort. It was a legend looking at the old guard, the bitter players and resentful media figures, and essentially telling them to grow up. Reminding them that the goal was always to leave the game better than you found it, a goal they seem to have forgotten in their baffling crusade against their own rising tide.
I'm doing the same for Caitlin Clark and all the women in the WNBA. I think that rivalry is super important. I think conversation is super important.
Let's be perfectly clear about who we're talking about here. This isn't just about the most popular player in the WNBA. The phenomenon of Caitlin Clark has transcended her own league. As the video bluntly states, if you take LeBron James and Steph Curry out of the equation, Caitlin Clark is the most well-known, most talked-about basketball player currently active in the United States. Period. It's described as the worst-kept secret in sports. We're witnessing a level of stardom that the women's game has simply never seen. She arrived at a struggling Indiana Fever team and, in an instant, became the center of the American sports universe. Every game is an event. Every city she visits becomes the hottest ticket in town. Her name carries a weight that draws in casuals and diehards alike, making her not just a WNBA star, but a true nationwide cultural icon whose popularity is undeniable. For anyone who doubts the magnitude of this movement, the numbers tell a story that is impossible to refute. The Caitlin Clark effect isn't just a catchy phrase. It's a verifiable, statistical tidal wave. It began before the season even officially tipped off, when a preseason exhibition game pulled in an astonishing 1.3 million viewers, a figure that regular season games from the previous year could only dream of. Then came the regular season, and the numbers exploded. Her debut against the Chicago Sky, an average of 2.7 million people tuned in, making it the most watched WNBA regular season game in a quarter of a century. Not long after, a matchup against the New York Liberty saw the viewership peak at a staggering 3.3 million. These aren't just good numbers. They are revolutionary figures that prove one simple fact. Caitlin Clark moves the needle like no one else in the history of the league.
I think the WNBA is so dynamic in its growth right now, in its reach. And I do want to commend, the network of ESPN and ABC.
The conversation around Caitlin Clark isn't just about culture. It's about cold, hard cash. Projections indicate that she is on a trajectory to generate over $1 billion in revenue for the WNBA in her first year alone. This isn't just growth. It's a financial rebirth for the entire league. Yet, the most terrifying illustration of her value came when she was sidelined with an injury. The ticket prices for a highly anticipated game between the Fever and the Chicago Sky didn't just dip, they plummeted to Hades, dropping a jaw-dropping 300%. This was a stark and brutal wake-up call. It proved that the newfound momentum, the soaring franchise valuations, and the leverage for that next collective bargaining agreement that players dream of all hinge on one person's presence on the court. The WNBA is one serious Caitlin Clark injury away from losing it all, a fact that should terrify the very people who seem to resent her success.
When we look at the WNBA, whether we've speculated about resentment or whatever it is, ultimately it comes down to the fact that there were an abundance of women in the WNBA doing tremendous, tremendous work on behalf of the WNBA and the game of basketball, and you just sense that folks were feeling an absence of appreciation for what they had done and what their collective contribution was to bring the WNBA to where it is now.
In the face of this undeniable phenomenon, the response from the league's leadership has been baffling. Instead of embracing their golden goose, they've engaged in a bizarre campaign to dilute her impact. WNBA Commissioner Kathy Engelbert penned a long article for the prestigious Harvard Business Review, where she bent over backward to credit everyone but Caitlin Clark for the league's newfound success. She praised marketing teams, front office strategy, and a singularly exceptional group of college players, lumping Clark in with others as if their contributions were equal. She claimed the league's success wasn't an overnight sensation, but the result of years of hard work. While true, it was a deliberate attempt to downplay the lightning in a bottle she had been handed. To any outside observer, it read like a desperate scramble to avoid giving credit where it was so obviously due, a clear sign the old guard mentality starts at the very top. Perhaps most damning has been the league's deafening silence in the face of the vile and often dangerous hate directed at Caitlin Clark and her teammates. After the very first game, the WNBA launched a full investigation into alleged hate speech from fans, a rumor that was later proven to be completely false. Yet, when real, documented threats emerged against the Fever players, including photos with bullseyes on them and messages saying, "It's on site when I see you," the league did nothing. Crickets, no statements of support, no condemnation of the attacks. This created a glaring double standard. The league that champions itself as a space of inclusion, with slogans like "No space for hate," stood idly by as its biggest star was accused of everything from racism to using her coach's baby as a prop. It was a complete abdication of responsibility, leaving Clark and her fans to wonder where the league's protection truly lies. In a desperate attempt to explain away a phenomenon they cannot comprehend, many critics have resorted to the most divisive tool available: race. The narrative has been relentlessly pushed that Caitlin Clark's unprecedented popularity is not due to her transcendent talent, her shattering of 62 WNBA records, or her single-handedly dragging a bottom-tier team into the playoff hunt as a rookie. Instead, they chalk it up to her being white. This toxic talking point ignores her constant praise for the legends who came before her and her respectful demeanor toward opponents. It's a lazy, destructive argument that turns a positive sports story into a culture war. All Clark has done is play basketball at a historic level, yet she's been dragged into a narrative that has nothing to do with her actions, all because some cannot accept that this particular player, at this particular time, is the one captivating the world. When Candace Parker finally spoke, it was like a cool breeze of logic cutting through a hurricane of nonsense. On first take, she was asked directly if she felt resentful of the attention and money surrounding Caitlin Clark. Her answer was a masterpiece in perspective. She explained that her job and the job of her generation was to leave the game better than I came into it. She posed a simple, brilliant question. "You think Cheryl Miller is resentful for me that I had a league to play in?" No. She described how Miller now sits courtside cheering on the next generation, like Juju Watkins, and how she is doing the very same for Caitlin Clark and all the women in the league. That one line, "I get asked so many times if I'm resentful," spoke volumes about the toxic jealousy running rampant behind the scenes. Candace Parker didn't just answer a question, she provided the blueprint for how every veteran should behave. The core message from legends like Candace Parker and Lisa Leslie is a desperate plea for sanity. Keep it about basketball. They understand that all the noise, all the race baiting, and all the toxic Twitter discourse isn't helping the WNBA grow. It's doing the exact opposite. It's painting the league as a dysfunctional family, tearing itself apart from the inside, unable to celebrate its single greatest moment. When players take runs at Clark on the court and the conversation shifts from the game to controversy, everyone loses. The focus should be on the incredible opportunity Clark provides. Every time she sells out a 20,000-seat arena, it's a chance for fans to discover every other player on that court. As Parker stated, the key is to stay within the lines of the game. This drama isn't building anything. It's just inviting in a toxic energy that threatens to poison the well for everyone. Ultimately, the WNBA finds itself at the most critical crossroads in its history. It has been gifted a moment of unprecedented growth, a chance to finally break into the mainstream and secure its future for generations to come. But this golden opportunity comes with a profound challenge. The league must stop blowing it. It must celebrate its star, protect her on the court with fair officiating, and embrace the millions of new fans she has brought in. The Achilles heel, as the video posits, is the league's inability to accept that this one player is the driving force. The big question remains, will the WNBA finally learn its lesson? Will the voices of reason, like Candace Parker, guide them towards stability? Or will the jealousy and internal conflict, the inability to accept Caitlin Clark, be the very thing that holds them back forever, squandering the greatest gift they've ever received? The clock is ticking. Is